Is treatment prayer? Got an email from somebody who's new to all of this and said, is treatment the same thing as prayer? And once again, the answer is an absolute unqualified sort of. Because, okay? The difference between treatment and prayer is in the object-subject relationship, I guess you'd say. In traditional prayer, at least in Western prayer, the individual praying is praying to something. It's praying to the deity, the divine, or some subset of that, like a saint, for example, and asking for something and then waiting. Asking for something and then waiting. Or asking and offering something in return, which is called deal-making. Okay? If you'll do this for me, I'll quit drinking or go to church every Sunday or feed the poor or do something, if you, and so that's typical prayer. I'm cartooning it some, maybe a lot, but it's prayer. Treatment, on the other hand, says that you don't go to something, you come from something, right? You come from within the divine presence of you. You come from that, and you affirm that all the good that could possibly be given has already arrived. What you're wanting to do is to recombine it into certain forms that are salutary and beneficial to you, you see. And I think I got into this a little last week with the idea that all the musical notes have been created that anybody might ever need. And that every new song that gets written is a recombination of those notes. And every shade and color and hue of paint, let's say, has already been created, except they keep finding more if it comes to paint and carpets and stuff. But anyway, splitting, how many kinds of white can you have? But, eggshell. Anyway, really and truly. And so all new art is recombining this, and you get the idea. So we live in the midst of infinite good that's already been provided. Now what we want is for it to show up in a way that's useful to us. For that to happen, the cosmos does not have to move. We move. We move in consciousness. We are the ones who change. We are the ones who align ourselves. We are the ones who, because our experience of everything, and this is the kicker, and this is where it gets into spiritual psychology, our experience of everything is subjective. Our experience of everything is subjective. Are you having a nice morning today? How do you know? How do you know you're having a nice morning? Do you ask somebody else if you're having a nice morning? You look at how much money you have in your pocket to decide that. Have you eaten breakfast or not? Maybe you don't like breakfast. Are you having a nice morning? It's subjective to you. And if somebody asked you to defend it, you probably couldn't. They say, what's with you having a nice morning? Nobody else is. And you're like, well, and you start coming up with these reasons, and they're meaningless to anyone outside the self. You know how you are. You know how you feel. Okay? So, are you abundant today? Where do you look for that? Well, people would say you look at your money or you look at your power or something. No, you look at your heart. You look at how you feel. Okay? Are you healthy today? Are you emotionally balanced today? Are you loving and kindly today? By what measure, we ask ourselves? By a subjective measure, known only to us. Yes, we make social agreements, social contracts around these things, but it always spirals back to the self and how the self feels. So treatment is bringing ourselves into alignment with it's poetically called the divine idea, bringing ourselves into alignment with the fact that there is one life, that life is spirit, that life is all the life there is, and that life is the life we're having right now. And therefore, I'll get more into this in a minute, but therefore in that life is everything I could possibly want. So am I open to it? Am I accepting of it? Am I willing to have this happen? And if I'm not, why am I not? What is there in the way of this? And I will look at that. And it's an unmet need of some kind that has greater priority to me than the goal I say I've stated. See, there's something in the way of this, and so I want to address that first. You ever have a task that you want to accomplish, but before you have to do something else, and before you do that, somebody has to return your phone call. And before that, you're waiting on something in the mail. And so there's this whole line of stuff that like can't happen until it's like, you know, the pin gets pulled or whatever, and things start to fall into place. Well, sometimes we have a grievance against life that's deep down inside that needs to be addressed first before we can be all prosperous and happy and loving and kind. Like there's forgiveness work to do, forgiveness of self and others.